Broadcasting live from the Biz 1190 studios in Buckhead, it's the Dana Barrett Show. Atlanta radio that means business. Now, here's your host, Dana Barrett.
All right, it is the Dana Barrett Show. We are live, we are local, and we are covering Atlanta business in a very, very special way. Let's get into workplace poker, something I've never been good at. Dan Rust, the author of a brand new book called Workplace Poker, is joining me on the phone. Good morning, Dan.
Hey, good morning, Dana.
So I have to tell you something, Dan. When I have people like you on the phone, it's really just to help me.
I get it.
the listeners get to have like the side effect of my life getting better, but really, it's just all about me. And I have to tell you right off the bat, I am terrible at all of this.
Well, at least you're willing to own up to it. You know, the first time I approached a publisher with the book, the response was not really great. In fact, what they basically said was, well, this is a topic everyone finds distasteful, and they don't really care to talk about it. It's kind of like a dirty little secret. So, hey, thanks, but no thanks. And so I got that going for me.
Hey, thanks. I like that. Go ahead.
But I think that most people like you and like me who are hardworking, talented, we know what we know and we do a good job, and we have this instinctive assumption that if I just do that, if I just do the good work, then everything should work out. And yeah. I think I operated maybe for the first 10 years of my career with that unspoken mental assumption. Yeah. But that's really not the way it works.
No, and I mean, I think, at the beginning of the book, you sort of talk about who should be reading the book and sort of say, if you've ever felt like someone else got ahead because they sort of had a bigger mouth than you, like you're working hard, you're doing your job, you're maybe more ethical, smarter, whatever it is, and here's these other sort of jerks getting ahead, then this is kind of the book for you. And you talk about sort of recognizing the game under the game. So, explain what that is, because I feel like I also, and I think most people start their career thinking, because that's what your parents teach you, just work hard and, be a good person and all will be well.
Yeah. And I think when you, to think about the game under the game, the first thing you have to recognize is that when we talk about, or when I talk about self-promotion in the corporate workplace, it's not the Donald Trumpish type of braggadocio self-promotion. In fact, if anything, that works against you, because people, find that abrasive. Yeah, it works for Donald Trump, a mogul, a real estate developer, a national figure. But for people in the workplace, it's much more subtle, and it's designed to not offend anyone. In fact, if anything, align people with you so that you have other people promoting you as well. Yeah. And the game under the game really is that other half of what goes on in the workplace. And truly, it's not just the workplace. I mean, you think about, your typical Thanksgiving dinner. There's the dinner and the dinner conversation, and then there's the dinner under the dinner, what everyone's actually thinking or what they're not saying or what they're not doing. So human beings, we are political creatures, in the human politics sense. And that's what the book is all about, is how do you discern the real game under the game, and then how do you flow with it in a subtle way, in a positive way, in an ethical way, not in a kind of a disdainful or distasteful way. Well,
I got to call you out a tiny little bit, because okay. I feel like I was reading the book, and I feel like a lot of what you're suggesting is like, hey, Dana, you need to be a saint. Like, you got to work out, you got to get up early, you got to eat right, you got to be healthy, and you got to take it on the chin when people are jerks to you. Oh, and by the way, you take personal responsibility for all of what's going on in the world.
Yes. So, yes, you have to be a saint. You have to, of course, if you're going to write a book like this, ultimately what I did was I interviewed so many people who I knew had these high trajectory careers, and because I knew their stories, I knew they had experienced difficulties and challenges, and I wanted to figure out how they had kind of navigated their way through and maintained the trajectory of their careers. So as you collect up all of these stories and all of the tips and all of the ideas, first of all, what I found is that getting them to share the real story was the toughest part. We all are comfortable sharing our surface story of how, I had this difficulty, and then I did this, and then it all worked out fine, and in the end, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Well, okay, yeah, that's nice. But in reality, most stories are, that happened, and it sucked.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not even sure I learned anything from it. It was just a bad thing.
Yeah.
And yet, those are sometimes the stories, if we can know the reality, that we can learn from. But when you collect everything up, at a certain point, it does start to feel like, like the Bible, this collection of things that you really need to be doing and thinking and feeling every day. Otherwise, you're imperfect. So it's not meant to imply that everyone has to be absolutely on their game in every one of these areas. But my hope was that anyone reading the book would be able to, in almost every chapter, take away 2 or 3 tips, 2 or 3 things that they could say, I can do that, and I can do that, and I can do that.
Well, I want to talk to you about one thing in particular, because, like I said, this is about therapy for me, just so you know. But I'm definitely one of those people that has the kind of story that you just talked about, and you do too, because you talked about it at the beginning of the book about getting fired. And I talk about it now pretty comfortably because I'm in a good place and all is well, and I can sort of look back and go like, oh, well, if I hadn't gotten fired, I wouldn't be here doing this talk radio show right now. So, but I agree with you. In the moment, it was bad. And when I look back on it, especially after reading the book and hearing some of the other stories about people who kind of, knew what that turning point was for themselves, either blew up at their boss or, sent a bad email or whatever it was. I actually know exactly what the turning point was for me when it happened at the job that I ultimately got fired from, probably 6 months after I sort of did something wrong. So I think the question is, when you've kind of made a misstep, you've, sort of gotten upset and told off the wrong person or sent a bad email or whatever it was, or made the wrong decision at work, can you recover from that at the same company, or are you just doomed?
Well, of course, the answer is maybe. And what you probably want to do first is make sure that you fully have stepped away from the event in an emotional way, so that you can look back at not only yourself but other people and the situation objectively, and like I say in the book, completely own what you did or what happened, and then create a strategy or a plan for reaching back out to people to see if you can, in fact, mend fences or begin to alter the perception that people have of you. But when you start to do that, you have to be very discerning, because people will tell you what you want to hear. I mean, and so it may be that everyone's telling you the right thing, but in fact, the misstep basically means you're toast, but you can buy enough time to ultimately move on to the next thing. Or in some cases, you really can not only recover, but you can actually improve your personal perception or brand in that place by the way that you have recovered. But it's just like relationships. Sometimes in a relationship, someone does something, and the way they recover from it strengthens the relationship. And other times, I'm sorry, but it's a deal breaker, and the best thing to do is to cut the cord and move on. Right,
or just stay as long as you can, so you can go from one job, without being out of work, and go to the next one. We're almost out of time. It goes so fast when I'm getting counseled. But tell me quickly about being sort of aware of your own blind spots.
Well, and blind spots are critical, or becoming a little more aware of them, because we all make certain assumptions in the workplace, and not to oversimplify it, but when you think about the people that you're pretty sure have your back, or the people that you're pretty sure you can trust, or on vice versa, the people that you're pretty sure are jerks or idiots or morons or incompetent, all of those assumptions that we make, yes, some of them are accurate, but oftentimes within those assumptions there are blind spots. And I mean, I know I've had it where the guy that I just thought was an absolute ass to work with, ultimately, when I was able to take the time and be more discerning, he ended up being a pretty good, I wouldn't necessarily call him a mentor, because he didn't really want a mentor, but I learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
And so think about the strong assumptions you have about people in the workplace, and in the book we kind of go through a process of how you can be more discerning and identify where those blind spots might be, so that hopefully you can avoid some of the surprises in the workplace where someone that you thought was had your back actually is backstabbing you suddenly all the time, or vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are just about out of time in this segment, Dan, so thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. That was Dan Rust, author of Workplace Poker. Again, the subtitle of the book, are you playing the game or just getting played? And we barely touched on everything in there. He talks about being, a Velcro butterfly versus a Teflon rhino. I mean, some really great analogies, and you can really see yourself, I think, in a lot of aspects of this book if you work anywhere, whether you're the boss, the colleague, the employee, whatever it is. So really great book, Workplace Poker. Again, you can get it anywhere books are sold. And we've got more great stuff coming up for you.